All right, STAX AI. We've got our back test for, well, today's November the 12th. We do have our back test for everything for up through October 30th for last month. So let's get right into it. I've got some really interesting numbers to share with you guys this month. So for the month of October, you can see we had 29 total prints come in. Of those, 16 of them are now above 15% return. So we do have a fairly low rate for Stacks AI at this point, but keep in mind every single month that I've tested, you can go back and look. The month right before I do my testing is usually going to be a lower hit rate. This number does tend to tick up toward 90% over time, but we do have a 55% hit rate for the month of October so far. On average, these have returned 57 and a zero point zero 0.01 average returns across these 29 prints. Some notable ones to share with you guys. We see Google going much higher right now. Google from this one, they got in at an entry price of $6, now at 25.70, 328% return for that across 16 days of holding that to the high. AMKR here with a 229% return, Snow with a 142% return, and BTDR with a 146% return. Keep in mind, as time goes on, we do expect a few more of these to eventually turn into winners as the months go on. One of the interesting statistics that I have to share for you guys is that it takes about 90 days on average for Stacks AI prints to hit their highs. So keep that in mind. Going back into the month before, if you guys notice here where it says date of high, if it does get highlighted in blue, that means that it was updated for this back testing. All right, so it hit a new high, and therefore we have numbers to discuss here. The most interesting ones from the month of September. Obviously, you'll notice Google tends to be one that did move higher, especially at the end of the last month, end of October. We did see Google move into new all-time highs. We also have QBTS. Quantum was a very big winner for the last few months, 166% for that in terms of their return. MU continues to go higher. Micron, even though they had a earnings call or earnings that did actually cause them to drop a little bit, they've been recovering pretty hard since that. 786% return on that across 37 days. Mara, Bitcoin miner here, up 172%. LRCX, 357%. Baidu, 361%. GLXY, 148%. Lyft, we're still actually in this trade here, 113%. Tesla, 194. AMD, 748. SLV, 181. Alibaba, 355. And here another Google print, 504%. So the updated numbers for September. Originally, we're at a 23 out of 33. Keep in mind when I do my back testing, if they did come in the day that I did the back testing, I usually don't give you an update on those because they haven't moved just yet. So, 23 out of 33 actually was the original number, around a 60% hit rate. Now we can see a month later moved up to 91% hit rate. Keep in mind too, last month those averages only averaged about a 4% average return across all of those 20 across those 33 prints that we had. Now you can see it's gone up significantly, now up to 146% return, now only about 2 months away from that. Let's go a little bit further. You can see still continued updates. I'm just going to pick out the high returns that I see in here. JMIA, 535% return. Riot here, 718% return. Baidu, 469. And the big winner from here, Intel. Intel here went from $1.08 each to 17.52. Their $25 strike, it is about to expire in the upcoming weeks, but 100 or 1,522% return over 56 days. Now, this brings up the most important concept about Stacks AI. We developed this in order to give you guys an idea of what's happening behind the scenes, but allowing our algorithm and AI to pick out the most unusual prints that are coming in for Stacks and for us to be able to get into those alongside with those whales. So we've done our best to tailor our algorithm to, sniff out what's going on behind the scenes. In this situation, you have to understand they got in right before the announcements of how the US government was going to be taking a stake in terms of all the big partnerships and deals that Intel's been making. And they were able to get in at an awesome low price, $108 here, which each contract is now worth over $1,700 there. Again, 56 days for that to play out. So keep in mind, usually it takes over a month, if anything, close to 2 to 3 months for these to hit their highs. Eli Lilly here as well, up to 470% return there, and CORZ, Core Scientific, 447% return. So if you can see here, there's only two that are still have not moved up and have not hit that 15% threshold. EMN and Meta, they are currently down here. What this is over here on the left are the spot prices at which they entered those contracts. And then I use them to compare where that stock happens to be today. Now, keep in mind, when I say high percentage returns and or the highs of which these contracts hit, they could have come back down from them. So we have a little bit of a Google Spark line here that can help us get an idea from their entry to where we are today. Obviously, for example, this NBIS went to a high and then came back down a little bit. So if you were able to pick out that high, basically you would have been at 406%. Same with this one for Intel. Intel's hit that high somewhere around here. It's come down just a little bit here. But again, at the end of the day, what we're just trying to show you is that there are, insider information and insider trading does happen. And at the end of the day, Stacks AI is here to help us sniff out those situations where we could potentially make high percentage gains alongside with those whales and those insiders that happen to know what's going on. The majority of these returns, I will say, are related to news. They might not necessarily sell right when the news hits. It's not always a buy the rumor, sell the news situation, but there oftentimes are going to be run-ups that continue to go higher and higher over time. The big hint that I like to show you guys is that if you peek over at the expiration and the amount of time that they've purchased, keep in mind the more, if they buy 1 to 2 years out, generally you can expect that those will continue to move up over time. I'll give you guys examples of that as we continue through this sheet. Month of, so August here was 22 out of 24. Hit rate 91.67%. There's only two of these, like I mentioned, Meta and EMN, that didn't go higher just yet, but they still have some time into 2026. On average, these return 257% across these 24 prints so far. And I promise you, as we continue going through the rest of this year and as we get closer to these expiration dates, I do believe that this number will start to continue and tick up higher and higher. July, as you can see, our biggest winners here are STX and Baba. Man, I was talking about these back then. I'll even tell you, I took about 100 to 200% return on these. Seeing them at 1200% just reinforces the fact that if you have the ability to play these contracts and are able to get out at about 100% and let the rest of them run, there usually can be some very big gains for you guys to get from there. Alibaba here back in July. They got in when Alibaba was trading at 108. Now Alibaba's at 157. But at the highs, which was, a few months ago, Alibaba, this contract was trading at $5,520 each, up from 405, 1,200% return right there. So another really big one. This is one of our biggest top winners of all time for stacks. I believe it should actually, let's check real quick here. It is number 4 on our list, fourth of all time, BE Bloom Energy. They got in at $386 per contract here. And as of 73 days later, it was worth over $10,000 per contract. 26x return. So meaning multiply that number by 27 actually is how much return they got at the end of the day. Again, a lot of high numbers here. 17 out of 21 total. We still have a few of these that are still struggling right now, but again, I'll give you some notes about that in a moment. 17 out of 21, 80% hit rate, not too bad for the month of July, and on average, 362% return across all these prints. So as I keep going back here, these numbers, 600, almost 700%, ARKK, LEU, Riot, 83% hit rate for the month of June, 5 of 6, 425% return on average. Now, this is where you start to see some of these expirations grayed out. All that means is that they have expired now. So there will be no updates to this one anymore. And at the end of the day, these are pretty much locked into those numbers. So for example, this month, the 21 out of 23 is set in stone. It's not going to change anymore moving forward. But Tesla, let's see here. Google, like I said, went higher, 13x return. SLV, 371%. DKS, 234. QQQ 553. I'll point out when QQQ, SPY, IWM come into the STAX AI, prints, I do want you to understand they tend to be some pretty decent winners. I think on the low end, probably 2 to 300%. Obviously, in this situation, 500% plus. Alibaba, another big winner, 550%. And EWI here, 568%. Anything in dark green, just so you know, is over 100%. Light green or the neon green is between 15 to 99% return. So 21 out of 23 for that month. This is the month of May, 91% hit rate, 260% return on average. Now, I'm not going to go through and bore you with all these, but you can see through April, we still have a couple that have updated higher. Same with March. These are all from earlier in the year. So it just basically shows you that even, here, 184, 185 days later, 191 days later, these prints, because they bought so much time, are able to go higher and continue to reach new highs for those contracts. February, one of our lower months, but keep in mind we did see a pretty heavy dip in February of 2025 this year. 15 out of 19 hit rate is a 78%. But on average, our returns are still right under 200, 192% return. As we go further back, you'll see more and more of these are grayed out. January, as we started, this is one of our all-time highest, biggest ones. Alibaba, they got in at $1.11, ended up cashing out close to $3,880 per contract. That's basically a 34x return there for 47 days for it to reach those highs on those contracts. Month of January, 87% return or 87% hit rate with a 276% average return. Another one too. We were in these ones, took 1 or 200% returns on these. Now they're sitting at 500%, 500, 600%. All right. EOSE, an energy play here. They have till January of 2026, but look, 228 days to hit those highs. A lot of these Google plays in here, even Broadcom, as you can see, are the ones, and Nvidia hitting new highs for those contracts. And again, boosting our numbers up higher as well. So with that being said, if you go and take a look at our overall numbers, keep in mind there are about 494 total prints that we've had since the inception of STAX AI, since we started doing the back testing. On average, across those 492 total prints, the average return sits at 304%. That's ridiculous, guys. Okay. All the numbers, all the data is here for you guys to see. If you have doubts, please let me know. You can always email me over at help@investorcentralclub.com. We can share this document with you guys if you really do not believe us here. What's also interesting here too is here, one of the prints back in 2023 of October. Now, this is basically had 2 years for it to marinate, expires in January, but they got into AXP back when it was $144. They had a strike price of 240. It's now sitting at 372, and this has a 23, almost 24x return and was just updated last week. 532 total days to hit that high. Now, keep in mind, I have two numbers here for you. All right. Here we have 447, which is the 0% threshold, which is how we originally started calculating our STAX AI backtesting. As time went on, we got a little bit of feedback from our users and members that, it's not realistic to use 0% as a threshold because very few people are using that as the range in which they are going to get out of their contracts. So from 0 to about 15%, which we raised it to, 15% is now what we consider a win. Anything below that is now considered a miss. So of that, 425 of our 494 total prints, 86% hit rate when it comes down to our 15% threshold. But keep in mind, I'm gonna get to it. I've got some interesting numbers to share with you in just a moment. But if you look across all 26 months of our back testing here, you'll actually notice only two of our months are in light green. Everything else is in dark green. So what that means is 24 out of our 26 months of back testing, our average return is over 100%. We've actually got to have some pretty high ones here. This one, December 2,991%. The first few months as well. So back in 2023, you can imagine these have had the most amount of time, most amount of average days till high for them to play out. These are well over 400%. And in this case, 800, 700% as well. Most recently, April, you can understand the tariff tantrum that we had, which dropped the markets quite heavily. We saw big money buying the dip. 28 out of 29 of those prints are winners with an average of 693% average returns across that, just under 100 days for those to hit their highs. So just again, very crazy how STAX AI is able to, use our algorithm and use what we have in order to find out where these big money institutions are positioning themselves for extreme high returns as time goes on. Above 80% is where we'll see these green ones on the left here. 100% is going to be highlighted in dark green. There are a few of these are pretty much locked in, but overall our hit rate for anything over 15%, like I said, is 86% hit rate. And again, average highs, total return 304% on average with a 91 days to high. Okay. If I were to split this into 2024 and 2025, you can see 2024, we had 203 out of 236 prints that were winners. That's an 89% hit rate. On average, 271% returns on those. And for just 2025, just this year, 190 total prints, 223 total, 85.2% hit rate with a 302% average return. And I will say there are a few from back in 2023 that do also move this needle a little bit higher and move their averages higher just because they've really had a lot of extra time to move up as well. Now, some interesting statistics I want to give you. All right. This is just a sheet where I sorted everything by highest return. You can see the top 5 highest returns up here. 3,395, 2,991, 2,769, 2,646, 2,547. So well over 2,500% return for our top 6 actually when you consider it here. Okay. But even if you took the 25th, or actually, sorry, because the first one is the title, we'll say 26 is where this is number 25 on our list. 1,238% return for number 25 on our list. Number 50 on our list, 808% return. Number 75, 576%. Number 100, 451%. 125, 371, 151, 299%. Number 176, 240%. And even our 200th print out of 494, 191% return. Okay. Now let's get into a little bit of strategy. I've had some of you guys say, well, if I'm not getting out of those ones that are 15% or higher, then I'm probably going to end up losing on that. I'm going to hold on to those contracts and they're going to be considered full losses, 100%, 100% losses. Well, that's what I did. Every single one of these misses that were under 15%, I went in here and I recalculated it, plugged in that they would be full 100% misses. Okay. So your premium's gone on those positions. what would that bring our average to? Our average return would still be 290% returns, okay, across those 494 prints. Then what would happen if I went and I took, in this situation, took everything, this case, everything under 100% return. Okay. So if it didn't hit 100%, I'd never sold. If it hit 100%, I would have put a stop loss or a take profit. I would have taken at least half of my position off the table. So therefore, what would this strategy yield us? Well, if everything under 100%, I got to change this. Everything under 100% turns into a minus 100%, well, you would still have on average 245% returns. Then you can tell me, well, Eric, what if, what if? Well, in this case, what if, nobody's timing the tops. Nobody's making sure that they sell the very tippy toppy of each of these prints. Well, let's just say you sold at about 50% of where their highs hit. You would still be well over 122%, almost 123% return on those. So there's a lot of different strategies in order to use Stacks AI. We've been doing our back testing. We've been trying to figure out these numbers and trying to be as transparent as possible as we can to help you guys understand how to use this tool. One of our members, Daniel, did us a real solid a few months ago. He asked me for this sheet and he went through on every single print. Keep in mind, there's hundreds of prints here, every single print, and he decided to check the options chain and chart them out himself to see what the drawdowns happen to be. And he gave me a really interesting statistic that I want to share with you guys is the fact that less than 10% of these move up right away from their entry. And you can kind of see it through the spark line here. A lot of these may dip a little bit before they come back or have decent drawdowns before they go hit their highs. So while about 10% of them do end up going higher right away, you actually want to wait a little bit and allow your charts, allow your technical analysis to understand that what Stacks AI here should do is it should allow you to understand where big money is leveraging themselves. With that information, add these tickers onto your watch list. Make sure you know what contract they're getting into because that's where the liquidity is going to be. And if they do draw down 30, 40, 50%, sometimes even 60, 70% drawdowns, those may actually prove to be better entries for you. And what that will ultimately do, it will just amplify this percentage return at the end of the day. Okay. So I know this right here is just overall the total prints and everything. This on the very left still needs to be updated, but this is what I want to bring your attention to. Our hit rates have been fairly stable over time, but average return tends to go up over time in terms of the overall back testing for all of our Stacks AI. Okay. With that being said, I look forward to doing the next back testing for you. If you have questions, you can always go ahead and email us. Message me over at help@investorcentralclub.com. You can go ahead and let us know, ask us questions there. If you are already in our Stacks program or if you are in our Discord, you can always just DM me directly and I can always answer those questions for you there. Um, we've been doing this for 26 months now. Stacks is coming up to its 2-year anniversary of official public release, but we do have a couple of extra months of back testing before we had fully released this module for you guys here. And as you guys can see, across almost 500 prints, we've got an average of 300% average returns. I'll let you determine how you want to use it. We're always open here in Stacks for a conversation if you'd like to. But I'm hoping you guys can use this and capitalize on this data in some way that can bring you some, nice little profits in your portfolios. With that being said, this is Eric here with Investor Central Club, Stacks AI. I'm always happy to do these back testings for you guys. I appreciate you guys being patient with me. Of course, I've been doing these manually all by hand every single month. So now that we're close to 500 prints, it's taking me quite some time. If you have any ideas of how we could automate this process or make things a little bit more efficient, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm more than happy to hear your thoughts and your input that could help us, help us expedite this process, but also eliminate any sort of human error that might be caused by me doing this manually. All right, that's all I have to say for you guys today. Hope you guys enjoyed this backtesting video. We'll be back at it again next month. If you guys are also interested, we do a live session every Wednesday on this YouTube channel. Be sure to tune in, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell so that when we do go live and post anything new, you're not going to miss it. All right, happy trading, guys. This is Eric again. I'll see you guys in the next one.